The laughter started before sunrise, echoing down the sterile white corridors of St. Catherine's Medical Center in coastal Virginia, sharp and careless, cutting through the quiet like broken glass. It followed Hannah Brooks wherever she went, into the trauma wing, through the emergency doors, past the nurse's station, reminding her that no matter how hard she tried, she was still seen as nothing more than the new nurse, the awkward outsider who didn't quite belong. She had crossed oceans, survived heartbreak, and rebuilt her life from the ground up just to stand here, yet in these halls, her worth was measured in whispers and smirks. But on that morning, as a wounded Navy SEAL commander lay unconscious in the operating room, everything was about to change in a way no one could have imagined. Before the story unfolds, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet strength of people who refuse to give up, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive and reaching hearts that need them. Hannah had arrived in the United States 3 years earlier with a single suitcase and a carefully folded nursing certificate from a small Christian college in the Midwest. Her journey to that point had been long and bruising. She had grown up in a modest home, raised by a father who taught her compassion and a mother who showed her resilience. When illness claimed both parents within months of each other, Hannah was left alone with grief and a promise she had made to herself to dedicate her life to healing others. Nursing had become her calling, not just a profession but a purpose. Yet despite her training, her dedication, and her tireless work ethic, she found herself constantly underestimated at St. Catherine's, surrounded by senior doctors and seasoned nurses who seemed to view her presence as an inconvenience. The trauma department thrived on speed, experience, and confidence, and Hannah often felt she had to work twice as hard just to be noticed. Her supervisors assigned her the least desirable shifts, and her colleagues rarely trusted her with complex cases. She learned to keep her head down, to absorb the criticism silently, and to perfect every task, no matter how small. But inside, the weight of being overlooked pressed heavily against her heart. Each night, she returned to her tiny apartment, exhausted yet determined, studying medical journals, rehearsing procedures, and praying for the strength to face another day. That morning, a sudden call shattered the routine. A Navy helicopter was inbound, carrying a severely injured SEAL commander who had been wounded during a classified training exercise off the coast. The hospital erupted into controlled chaos as teams rushed to prepare the trauma bay. Surgeons scrubbed in, nurses gathered equipment, and administrators coordinated with military officials. Hannah stood quietly at the edge of the room, listening intently, memorizing every instruction. When the head nurse assigned roles, Hannah was given a minor support task, far from the center of the operation. It was the same pattern she had come to expect. As the helicopter thundered overhead, the gravity of the moment settled over the staff. Captain Matthew Reed, a highly decorated SEAL commander, had suffered massive internal injuries and severe blood loss. His survival depended on swift, precise intervention. When he was wheeled through the emergency doors, his body battered and pale, the atmosphere shifted from urgency to raw intensity. Doctors barked orders, machines beeped in relentless rhythm, and the scent of antiseptic filled the air. During the initial assessment, complications arose. Internal bleeding proved more extensive than anticipated, and a rare blood type was required for transfusion. Supplies were limited, and time was slipping away. The surgical team debated the next steps, tension mounting as every second increased the risk. Hannah, positioned near the back, noticed subtle changes in the commander's vitals that others overlooked, irregularities she had studied late into countless nights. With hesitant resolve, she stepped forward, gently suggesting a diagnostic approach that could pinpoint the bleeding source faster. The room fell silent. Several doctors exchanged skeptical glances. One of them dismissed her recommendation without a second thought, instructing her to return to her station. Hannah retreated, her cheeks burning, yet her concern lingered. She watched the monitors, her heart pounding, praying she was wrong. Minutes later, alarms blared. The commander's condition deteriorated rapidly. The doctors scrambled, revisiting strategies, urgency thickening the air. Finally, the lead surgeon ordered the very procedure Hannah had proposed. When the results appeared, they revealed a hidden rupture that could have been fatal if left untreated any longer. The realization rippled through the team, unspoken yet undeniable. Hannah was suddenly summoned to assist directly. Her hands trembled as she prepared instruments, but her focus sharpened. She worked with precision, anticipating needs, maintaining calm amid the storm. The operation stretched on, every movement a battle against time. When the bleeding was finally controlled and the commander stabilized, exhaustion swept through the room like a heavy tide. Hours later, as Captain Reed was transferred to recovery, word spread quickly through the hospital about the near disaster and the nurse who had quietly noticed what others missed. Still, Hannah remained humble, returning to her duties without expectation of recognition. For her, saving a life was reward enough. Days passed. Captain Reed regained consciousness, disoriented but alive. Military officials visited frequently, and the hospital buzzed with restrained pride. One afternoon, Hannah was assigned to check his vitals. As she approached his bedside, she felt the familiar knot of nerves tighten in her chest. He lay propped against white pillows, his broad frame still bearing the marks of injury, yet his eyes were sharp, observant. As she adjusted the monitor, he studied her face, recognition slowly dawning. In a quiet, deliberate motion, he raised his hand and offered a crisp salute. The gesture was firm, respectful, and deeply intentional. The room seemed to freeze. Nearby staff stared, stunned by the powerful simplicity of the act. A commander, revered for his bravery, honoring the new nurse they had dismissed. The silence broke into murmurs as Captain Reed held the salute for several seconds before lowering his hand. His gratitude radiated without words. For Hannah, emotion surged through her chest, blurring her vision. That single gesture carried more meaning than any praise she had ever received. It acknowledged her skill, her dedication, and her worth. News of the salute spread quickly through St. Catherine's. Attitudes shifted. Doctors who once ignored her now sought her input. Nurses who had whispered behind her back offered smiles and quiet apologies. Hannah felt a subtle but profound change in the way she was treated, yet she remained grounded, continuing to approach every task with humility and compassion. Over the following weeks, Captain Reed's recovery became a symbol of resilience throughout the hospital. He requested Hannah's presence whenever possible, and though professional boundaries remained, the mutual respect between them was unmistakable. His recovery reminded everyone that heroism is not confined to battlefields. Sometimes it lives in the steady hands of those who heal. One evening, after a particularly long shift, Hannah stood alone by a window overlooking the darkened ocean. The distant glow of the coastline shimmered like a promise. She reflected on her journey, the loss, the struggle, the countless moments of doubt, and realized that every step had led her here, to a place where her purpose had been affirmed. She felt her parents' presence in her heart, their lessons echoing softly, urging her to keep serving, keep believing. If this story has touched your heart, inspired you, or reminded you of the power of perseverance, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel. Your support allows these stories of hope and resilience to continue reaching those who need them most. And before the ending, we have a special request for you. Comment the word respect if you believe that kindness and humility can change lives. In the months that followed, Hannah's confidence blossomed. She became an integral part of the trauma team, her insights valued and her presence welcomed. Yet she never forgot what it felt like to stand alone, overlooked and underestimated. She made it her mission to mentor new nurses, offering guidance, patience, and encouragement. She understood that sometimes, all it takes is one person believing in you to ignite a transformation. Captain Reed eventually returned to active duty, but not before visiting Hannah one last time. Though their exchange was brief and wordless, the gratitude and respect between them lingered in the air long after he left. For Hannah, his salute would forever symbolize the moment she reclaimed her sense of self-worth. As life continued within the bustling walls of St. Catherine's, Hannah carried forward a renewed sense of purpose. She moved through each day with quiet strength, healing wounds seen and unseen, her compassion shaping every interaction. And though the laughter that once haunted her steps had faded, its memory remained, not as a source of pain but as a reminder of how far she had come. In a world that often measures value through titles and status, Hannah's story stands as a testament to the unseen heroes among us, those who labor in silence, who persist despite doubt, and who choose kindness even when faced with cruelty. Because sometimes, it takes the salute of a wounded warrior to reveal the extraordinary heart of a so-called new nurse.